This episode of What's Good, the Alex Montoya podcast, is brought to you by Gomez Trial Attorneys. Call 1-833-GET-GOMEZ today. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here in the latest episode of What's Good, the Alex Montoya podcast. Thank you for supporting us. Thank you for Gomez Trial Attorneys for your support. Thank you to our wonderful guest, who you all will meet momentarily. And thank you for everyone following on Spotify and YouTube. So excited to be here. I am Alex Montoya, founder and host of What's Good, the Alex Montoya podcast. And maybe for those that are listening for the first time, just kind of as a little bit of a reminder, the whole purpose of our podcast is to show what's good in this world. We live in very heavy times. We live in very tough times. And so I like to highlight people that are making a difference, people that are inspiring, as you will see our guest today very much is, and people that are just making a big, big impact within our community. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you for watching. And thank you for supporting the Alex Montoya podcast. With that, today I would like to welcome Miss ReAnn Nicholson. ReAnn, how are you?
I'm doing great, Alex. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here. ReAnn, you are to me a wonderful entrepreneur, mentor, businesswoman, and above all, a dear friend.
Oh.
We met at local church San Diego, where you are certainly one of the leaders there. And I invited you onto the show today because I really feel the community should know about really everything you've got going on, because you have quite a few things going on. But I would love to kind of start from the beginning as to who you are and your background and your life story. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so fun that we met at local, because local has only been a small but mighty part of my journey. So if we take it chronologically, I was born and raised in a river city in the south of China called Liuzhou. And I lived there for about 9 years and moved to the United States when I was 9. So when I moved to the United States, I lived in Minnesota with my mom and my dad. Grew up in a very loving but predominantly white community. I went to elementary school, high school, middle school, high school there, and then also went to college in Minnesota as well, where I studied communications. And after that, I graduated in the middle of COVID, actually. So really interesting time to be a college grad, looking to, just step into the real world, step into a career. But I landed my feet in the financial services industry, where I was also in a sales role. I love the competitiveness of sales. I love being able to meet new people. And ultimately, I knew that I wanted to just be able to branch out more and continue to learn more about myself, my culture, and see what was outside of Minnesota. And that's where I was visiting with some friends out in California. And for people who have lived in Minnesota, you probably know that in April, it's not exactly bright and sunny outside, just depending on the season. And for me, winter is, Minnesota is really special, but winter hasn't always had the warmest place in my heart. And so I really wanted to be in a place where I could spend all of my days not worrying about what the weather looked like and being able to envision myself in a warmer place such as California. That's where I started venturing out with careers out in San Diego. I eventually found a company that moved me from Minnesota to California in the span of like 2 months. I packed up the back of my SUV, drove across country, and started my new life, as you can call it, in San Diego, only knowing one person. And with that, it's kind of crazy of how I ended up in San Diego and how I ended up at local church, because the one person that I knew, she would post about the church that she goes to, and she would post about other organizations that she was involved in or, went to and attended in the community. And one day I saw that she posted a flyer about a girlfriends club where young women come together and meet new people, join in community with one another, and they were meeting at a coffee shop. And me being, 2-3 days, maybe a week into San Diego, I said, I want to meet new friends. I need a new group of people. So that's where I went to Girlfriends Club and then chatted up with the girls. They were all so amazing. And afterwards, they were all like, okay, bye. See you later. See you at church. See you at church. And that's when I was like, do you all go to the same church? And everybody was like, yeah, you should come. It's just right down the street. And it's amazing because I wasn't necessarily looking for a church at that time, but I was really yearning for a community. And when I stepped into Girlfriends Club, doing the coffee chat, and then eventually went to local church, it really opened up this whole community of people that was so loving, so supportive. And I also met my husband out here as well. So shout out to my husband, Malik. That is how I ended up in San Diego, all the way across the world from China, and where I am now. And lo and behold, I love it. I love the fact that it's January outside. I can wear short sleeves and it's amazing. So yeah, I'm so glad to be here. And San Diego is definitely my home.
Wonderful, wonderful. So let's backtrack a little bit. So you grew up in China, and you moved here when you were 9, and 9 years is really a pretty significant amount of time at any point in your life. But when you're a kid, that is really when you're kind of figuring out who you are. So what was the transition like? Because it's not like me when I was born in Colombia and immigrated when I was 4. I only had a couple years worth of memories from Colombia. So all of my formative memories were really formed here in the US. But you already had a good 9 years in China. What was it like really adapting to a new country, a new language, all of it?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I think that for me as a 9-year-old, I was almost fearless in a way that I was really open-minded to the new adventure of moving to a new country, starting a new life. And I knew that it was really cool to be able to have the opportunity to even move from my home in China all the way over to the United States. And it was, I'm not gonna lie, it was a bit of a culture shock because when I lived in China with my family, we lived in a big city. We took the bus everywhere, public transportation, hustle and bustle. And when we moved to Minnesota, we moved into a very rural community. I think my bus ride was like an hour to school, and it was just kind of like night and day difference. But I think the timing of it couldn't have been better because when I moved here, it was in the middle of summer. So all the kids in the neighborhood had school off. And that's when I really got to know the people in my neighborhood, really got to hang around the kids. And at the time, Alex, I didn't speak any English. I didn't speak a lick of English when I came to the United States. And it was from the time of spending summer with those kids all the way up until September. So July to September was when I really learned to communicate with people more so verbally and was able to get around and hang out with other kids and just feel like a normal kid who also grew up in the United States. So I think in those years when you're 9 years old, you have more awareness of what was going on around you. Like I was very much aware of like my memories, my family in China. I still remember them. A lot of family is still back in China, but still having that awareness of wanting to be able to assimilate and create similarities with the people around you so you feel accepted by them. So I think from a very young age I yearned for that community. I yearned to just be around people, and I give so much credit to the kids that I grew up with. They're still some of my best childhood friends because without them I wouldn't have been able to learn English, and I wouldn't have been able to probably have the same experience that I had growing up in the United States.
Right. Okay, fantastic. And obviously Minnesota and Minneapolis has been in the news a lot lately. How do you feel about everything going on, and what's kind of your prayer or your desire just for the region?
Yeah, I think that, it sits so heavily on my heart of what's happening back home. And I think that, Minnesota being one of the examples of what has been happening around the United States, and being an immigrant myself, coming from an immigrant family, I think that this is no better time to be able to emphasize the beauty of culture and how culture is something that brings people, brings communities together. And because of the fact that, we want to come together to emphasize that diversity, emphasize that culture. I think that like when people think about communities outside of the one that they belong to or outside the one that they're familiar with, maybe there's a little bit of fear around it or unfamiliarity that's causing them to feel, or I guess other different groups of people. But I think there's so much beauty that lies in coming together and emphasizing culture, celebrating it even, and recognizing people's differences are what makes us stronger, not what makes us, grow apart. So while there are so many things that I can say about what's happening in Minnesota, I think it is just an example of how we can continue to stand up for our community, how we can continue to support the people who are being persecuted, and how we just really need to come together right now to be able to lift everyone's voice and be one with one another.
Fantastic. I fully agree. So you moved to San Diego, and like you said, San Diego in January is a lot different than people that are living in Minnesota. At this time of year, like you say, today we're able to wear short sleeves and shorts and just live in paradise, right? And then you met your husband, Malik. Shout out to Malik. And one of the things that you did, I know, was you started your own podcast, the BYOB podcast. Can you talk a little about that?
Yes. So the podcast that I have is co-hosted with my best friend Ellie, and is a virtual podcast that we record online on a online platform. So she lives in Denver while I lived in San Diego, and we would record episodes every single week and publish on Thursdays. But the podcast is called Be Your Own Boss, or BYOB for short. And it was our way of really emphasizing the fact that you create the life that you want. Our slogan was to be the CEO of your life, whether you run a business or whether you don't. Because of the fact that so many of us have multiple passions, we have multiple different layers that, whether it's culture, whether it's passion, whether it's identity that like bring us together. We really just wanted to lift people up and have that positivity in the messaging of you can be whatever you can be, just own it, like be the CEO of it. So we are going on the 4th year of the podcast now, which is amazing. We've published over 145 episodes, 150 episodes throughout these 4 years, throughout these last 3 years, going on 4, I should say. But me and Ellie are so proud of what BYOB has become, and our community is continuing to grow. And it started out as a creative outlet for both of us while we were both working corporate jobs and envisioning what it would be like to have this full-time business be when it came to like going all into something that we were so passionate about, right? I think like a lot of people, if they're in a full-time job, you can really love it. But a part of both of us felt that there was something missing, like some alignment or some fulfillment that was missing from our jobs that we weren't getting. So that's where the podcast came in as an outlet for us to be creative, to talk about our passions in an open way, and just be able to dream. Like that's so important, to just be able to like dream about the life that you want. And it's so amazing because since we started the podcast, just talking about this idea of starting our own businesses, running our own businesses full time, I have now started my own business. So it's kind of a full circle moment of how it all came together as a creative project, how it, just being able to voice the fact of like, encouraging other people to be the CEO of their lives. Like I was also internalizing that message for myself and giving myself that confidence of stepping into something big of my own. So that's been a very beautiful journey. And like I said, I'm very proud of where the podcast is today.
Wonderful. So before I forget, if people want to find the BYOB podcast, how can they find it?
Yeah, so you can find it on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. You can also find us on Instagram at the Be Your Own Boss podcast.
Okay, perfect. And then as you perfectly segued, as you were hearing these themes and you were talking about these themes about being your own boss and being your own CEO, you decided to go ahead and do that. And you started Origins Tea.
I did.
Tell us about that.
Yes, Origins Tea. Oh my gosh, it's so crazy to be able to now talk about this vision that I've had in my head and have a physical product tied to it. And it's so amazing. And I'll explain a little bit about the company before I dive into it. So Origins Tea is a company that's dedicated to sourcing high quality loose leaf tea. But more than tea itself, we are all about emphasizing the cultural aspect of where tea comes from, celebrating culture and building community one cup at a time. And with that vision, we hope that you sit down together to enjoy a cup of tea with your loved ones, but also reflecting on your own culture, where you come from, and celebrating where your origins are, because our origins makes us who we are today, and it makes it is what makes our story so special when we meet other people. So that all around aspect of having culture, community, and connections within a cup of tea is what we really emphasize at Origins Tea. And with the company itself, it started out as an idea that I really wanted to bring to life because tea has always been a part of my family growing up. And if you remember when I talked about, moving to the United States, I moved to a very predominantly white community where I wanted to fit in with others, where I wanted to, not be the girl who was singled out for being different. I wanted to be a part of the culture that I was growing up in. But with that, I felt like I lost a lot of like my own cultural identity of who I am as a person, who I am as a Chinese woman, growing up in the United States. It can be really hard when you're at a young age. So now that I'm older, I'm recognizing the importance of like celebrating my culture and really stepping into my cultural identity. So Origins Tea was a way of bringing me back to my culture, like an homage to where I grew up, how I grew up, just me as a whole. And I think that's what I want people to celebrate as well when they're drinking a cup of Origins Tea.
I love it. And I know that one thing that we talked about ahead of time was just the whole concept of Positivi-Tea.
Yes.
And just kind of being aligned. So is that what you would call Positivi-Tea, is kind of being able to capture culture, memories, heritage, just everything that comprises you within just the act of sitting and enjoying a round of tea?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's about that community aspect as well, right? Like, tea is better shared with somebody else. And I think that when you are having tea, whether it's by yourself as a self-care ritual or having it with other people around the table, you're getting to know the people around you. You're building community with those that maybe you haven't talked to before. You are celebrating culture. All of those things I feel like have an essence of positivity or have an essence of this welcoming, this warmth. And that was something that I was so used to growing up, right? Having tea rituals, having tea time with my grandparents. But now coming to the United States, when you are walking the aisles of the grocery store, you see shelves and rows of teas, but a lot of the teas, you don't get that community, you don't get that cultural aspect, you don't get the ritual behind it. So I really wanted to be able to bring the origins back to tea and really bring it back to the roots of where it came from. And like I said, a reminder for all of us to think of where we came from as well and celebrate that.
Okay. And people can find more information on Origins on Instagram, correct?
Yeah. So
and then online?
Yes, you can find out more about Origins Tea at www.origins-tea.com or on Instagram at originstea.co.
Perfect. And they always have a lot of fabulous events that are very communal, and I highly encourage everyone to find out when the next ones are. And by all means, please attend because they are highly, highly regarded. Okay, so now we're going to have some fun. And we're going to do what we call the lightning round. And this is where I ask you either a series of questions or say a couple words, and whatever the first word is that comes to your mind, you got to just say it.
Okay.
So some of them are yes, no questions, and some of them just whatever the first thing that comes to your mind, you'll see, and you'll see after a couple examples. So, for example, and just to find out, more about you as a person, more of your tastes, pineapple on pizza, yay or nay?
Yay. Absolutely. 100%.
Thank you. I agree. Best tacos in San Diego?
Oh, tacos El Gordo.
Oh, okay. You're 2 for 2 so far. Okay. I would agree. What's your favorite flavor of taco there?
Oh, I like the adobada.
Oh, yeah. You're bold. I just go straight carne asada. Okay. Your favorite flavor of tea?
My favorite flavor of tea would be red tea.
Oh, okay.
Try it out if you haven't.
Sweaters on dogs, yay or nay?
Sweaters on dogs? Sweaters on dogs. Oh, absolutely. So cute. My dog gets very anxious though when I put a sweater on him.
I'm a little anti. I'm a little like that's a little extra, but I could be convinced, especially when I see some of the cute Christmas sweaters, Do you prefer wine or beer?
I prefer wine.
Wine, okay. And Taylor Swift or Sabrina Carpenter?
Taylor Swift. All day, every day.
All the Swifties unite. Do you pronounce it caramel or caramel?
Caramel.
Caramel, same. Okay. Well, that is the lightning round.
Okay.
And that is actually our interview for today. So, ReAnn Nicholson, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate you being here. I really want people to support both the BYOB podcast and Origins Tea. Both are fantastic. I feel like people will get so much out of both of them. Please, please, please support both, and you will not regret it. In fact, you will feel very blessed as I have. Thank you so much for making the time. Thank you for being here. And we also want to thank again Gomez Trial Attorneys for supporting us and allowing the What's Good Alex Montoya podcast to have a home here in their studios. And again, just to remind you all that What's Good, the Alex Montoya podcast, is brought to you by Gomez Trial Attorneys. For expert legal services, call 1-833-GET-GOMEZ today. Please continue to like, subscribe, share. Let everyone you know all about this podcast, and let them know that we are here. And if you ever have any ideas for people that we can have in studio, we're always open to ideas too. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you for listening. Please continue to support both Origins Tea and BYOB podcast. And thank you for supporting What's Good, the Alex Montoya podcast. God bless. Thank you.